The story kicks off with a rather steamy moment, but it all comes falling apart for our hero, who wakes up to realize this was just a dream. He isn't too surprised by this because he has lived all his life as a loser boy, but then he panics upon realizing that he has overslept. At first, he believes that he might be late for work, but then it hits him that he has actually taken 2 days off, so he's in the clear. Now we learn that his name is Yama Zenjiro, who is just like any other man earning a monthly salary. He has been working in a shady company that is known to force its workers to work for over 150 hours a month, and that too on overtime. It's been a while since Yama has had 2 days on the go without having to do any work, so he feels very relaxed. He considers watching all of the DVDs that have been piling up at his place, but then he figures that he could be making much better use of his time. For example, he could take a trip to some place far away where he has never been before. However, he chooses not to go ahead with that plan, because if he was such a decisive boy, then he wouldn't have such a hard time choosing what to do in the first place. Our hero laughs about this for a while, but then he rides his cycle from the real world into some kind of fantasy dungeon. In front of him is a cute and curvy girl who has a couple of guards standing right next to her. This confuses our hero, especially when the girl addresses him as her groom. Yama has no idea what's going on, so he tries to stay calm while being in front of such a pretty girl. It's easy for him to let his intrusive thoughts run wild, but then he figures that he should focus on analyzing the situation first, and then thinking on what kind of decision to make based on the information at hand. The first thing he does is check his lunch, which is still warm, meaning that he is not in a dream. However, the babe in front of him is the same one he was doing unspeakable things with in his fantasy dream earlier today. This is very confusing for Yama, so he has no other option but to choose a safe way out. He bows down to the pretty lady and tells her sorry for intruding into her space. This is typical for an average salary man to do, so Yama hopes he can get out of trouble now. With that, he tries to exit the scene, but only finds a whole bunch of knights blocking his way. Yama panics as these guards come closer and even point their weapons at him, as if to say that he is now a prisoner over here. These are not fake spears either, so Yama starts to think that he's gotten himself into a huge mess. Luckily for him, the pretty lady orders the knights to lower their weapons, and they do so without any kind of hesitation at all. Now, to everyone's surprise, the curvy babe bows down to our hero and says sorry for bringing him here without his consent. It is understandable that he is at a loss after seeing what's going on over here, so she explains that he is in a fantasy world and this is her palace. Yama still doesn't know how this is going to help his situation, so he just nods along for now. The girl says that since he would like to know more about this world and understand why he has been brought here, it would be better for her to take him to some other place where she can explain how this whole thing has come about. Now Yama is taken around the palace, and he is shocked to see how big and impressive it is. He is unable to believe that such a place even exists, especially because his own apartment is nowhere near this mansion. As a matter of fact, it doesn't even feel like he is in Japan anymore. Now that she has given him a tour, the pretty lady makes an introduction and reveals her name to be Ora Capua. She would very much like for Yama to call her Ora, and then our hero also gives her his full name. Since she would like to be friendly with Yama, she asks if she can refer to him as Zenjiro Dono, which he doesn't seem to have a problem with. Now, Ora goes on to tell Yama about the chain of events that have led him to this situation. She warns him that he may get upset over what she says, and may even consider her reckless for doing this. But he does have a choice. If he does not like how things are over here, then she will simply return him to his normal world, where he can continue living the loser life he has always known. It will be as if such a thing never even happened in the first place. Ora swears her honor on this, so Yama decides to hear her out for now. It's not like there's much he can do about this anyway, so he decides to treat this like a customer complaint, so that he can get each and every point that Ora is about to say. She kicks things off by telling Yama that he is in the continent of Rando Rion, which is also known as the Southern Continent. The name of this kingdom happens to be Capua, and Aura's palace is right in the middle of the imperial capital city. Yama follows along, but he has never heard of such a place in his life. This is when Aura tells him that it's fine for him to feel this way, because this is what he would call another world in his lingo. Yama takes a moment to register this because it does sound a bit ridiculous. He gives Aura a very sarcastic look, and then he even starts laughing because he does not believe what she has just told him. He even asks her not to make fun of him, so Aura decides to try another way. She asks him to come closer to her, so he does as she says, but then a monster shows up right in front of him out of the blue. The monster even looks at our hero with spite in its eyes, so Yama panics upon seeing such a deadly beast. He falls to the floor and asks Aura what this is, so she laughs and explains that it is a land dragon. The knights of her land are known to ride such beasts for transport, so she apologizes for scaring Yama. Now, Aura asks him if he has land dragons in his own world, and he obviously says no. This brings him to the realization that he has actually been summoned in another world. Now, both Aura and Yama sit down with each other, and the pretty lady explains to him what this whole world is all about. Their chat goes on for a very long time, so she asks him if he was able to grasp whatever she was trying to explain. Yama says that he did get the gist of it, and states in a summary that he is in the Capua Kingdom, which is located in another world. On top of that, he was summoned here by Aura, who is not only the queen of this world, but also used time and space magic to summon him here. This is apparently a form of magic that only someone from the royal family can use, and Aura is glad to see that Yama was able to get whatever she was telling him. She thanks our hero for confirming her words, and then goes on to enjoy a drink. Yama only looks on in awkward confusion, as Aura tells him to refer to her by her first name, as he is not a subject of her kingdom. He seems to be fine with all of this, but what he doesn't get is why she ended up choosing him out of all the other people out there. He says that he has not ever used magic, neither has he ever even been able to lift a sword. Keeping this in mind, it doesn't seem likely that he will be of any use to her, because she would need a powerful man to handle her. The queen takes a moment, and then she tells Yama that she only has one request from him, and that is to become her groom. Yama's jaw drops because he doesn't think he heard her correctly. Aura repeats herself again by saying that she would like to make Yama her groom, so that he may eventually become her husband. In essence, she wants him to marry her, and this is all it takes for our hero to be astounded by her demands. He drops his drink out of shock and looks at Aura with disbelief. He wants to know why she would want to marry someone like him, so she decides to give him an explanation. Things may look nice and calm right now, but that was not the case some time ago. As a matter of fact, we learn that Aura's kingdom was in a state of war for a very long time before Yama came along. Even thought they were able to win this war. It came at a great price, which involved the lives of the royal family. As of now, Aura is the only surviving member of this family, as all of the direct descendants have passed away due to the war. Marriage is a duty at this point to Aura, so it's not like she can avoid at any cost. However, since her royal family is known to have the power of space-time magic running through their veins, Aura can't just marry anyone out there. She has to make sure that this magic is passed on to her children. So the best option would be to marry someone who comes from the same royal bloodline. Hearing this only makes Yama doubt the process even more because he is from Earth. So he does not have any connection to Aura's bloodline. If he does not know how to use magic, then he is the worst possible choice for Aura to try and continue her royal heritage. The queen was expecting to hear something along those lines, so she asks Yama to allow her some more time to explain a story from the past. Now we see her narrating a tale from 5 generations ago, which can also be interpreted as 150 years ago. During this time, Aura's kingdom had a crown prince who ended up falling in love with a woman whom he could never be with. While some had believed that this girl was a commoner, others had said that she was of royal blood, but from an opposition kingdom. No one could say for sure where this girl came from. But the point of the matter was that the prince was madly in love with her, and he did not even care about his position as the next king of the land. He was only bothered by the fact that he could not be with the girl of his dreams. Since they could not be together in this world, they instead decided to be together in another world. This seems very romantic to Aura, but Yama wants to know why she is telling him so much about her kingdom. That's when she explains that our hero is the descendant from this exact same couple. The summoning spell that Aura had used would only choose a man who had strong ties to her royal bloodline, and in this case, it happened to be Yama. Since our hero has appeared in front of Aura, there is no doubt that he is the one who has descended from her kingdom's prince. As the queen looks into Yama's eyes with desire in her heart, he realizes that she might be making sense after all. After all, his deceased parents, and even his relatives back at home, seem to match Aura's look. They all had darker skin when compared to normal Japanese people, but even if such a thing were to be true, he is 5 generations into the future. This could mean that he barely has any royal blood left inside him right now. Aura does admit that she was expecting such a thing to happen, but as per her calculations, it looks like Yama has a very strong match percentage with her royal family. Of course, our hero is not as strong as a direct descendant, but even then, he has an amazing amount of mana inside his body. As a matter of fact, he has enough power inside him to make him the head of a branch family. If he puts in the right amount of training, Yama could even be able to use space-time magic himself. So, keeping everything in mind, it looks like our hero has turned out to be the perfect man for the job. Now, Aura admits that she may have surprised way too many times for his own liking, so she would like to sit down with him and talk things out in a calmer manner. The queen presents Yama with the option to go back to his world if he does not wish to stay inside this fantasy world. After all, she was the one who summoned him here without his consent, so she will make sure to send him back and make it seem as if it never happened in the first place. She tells Yama to be at ease because he seems to be very worried about the fact that he won't ever be able to go back home. Now that this is out of the way, Aura says that she will still send Yama back once to his original world, even if he chooses to marry her. Basically, the act of summoning a person and sending them back to their real world is something that depends on the stars above in the sky. Aura is not able to use this magic as freely as she would like, but as of now, the alignment of the stars is going to remain the same until the next night. After that, it will return again in a month, so Aura can only make use of the window she has right now. The main problem is that if she misses the next alignment, then the one coming after that will only occur in 30 years. This is a huge shock for Yama, because 30 years is a lot of time for someone his age. He would like to confirm everything that he has just heard, so he tells Aura that no matter what he says, she will send him back to his original world the next night. If he says yes, then she will summon him again within 1 month. But if she misses that mark, when our hero will have to wait for another 30 years. This causes Aura to take a pause because she knows that such a decision will affect the course of their very lives. The queen flaunts her curvy body and asks Yama if he would not seriously consider marrying her and living in this world. This puts our hero into a train of thought because even if he says yes, then that means he will have to say goodbye to Japan for 30 years. However, if Aura is telling him the truth, then it's not a bad deal out for Yama because he is pretty much the definition of a loser boy. Not only is he a loner, he also does not have any family or girlfriend to go back to. There's also the fact that he's working for a shady company back on Earth, and the only thing that works in his favor is that he gets paid for his overtime work. Even if he were to leave that company, he would not be missing out on much, so it should be an easy decision for Yama. Now that he thinks about it, he will not have any regrets about leaving Earth because he has nothing to live for over there. In this fantasy world though, he will get to marry a pretty wife with an amazing body who also happens to be the queen of this kingdom. It's like a dream come true for any young boy because he will have the perfect wife while also living the life of a royal king. Such ideas awaken his intrusive thoughts as our hero continues to fixate on Aura's twin peaks. which are indeed worthy of admiration. However, his laughter is cut short when he seems to have some kind of realization. Yama figures that if he is going to become a royal member of the kingdom, then he will have tons of work to do. After all, people in high positions don't really have much free time on their hands. He will probably need to attend ceremonies from time to time. He would also need to make greetings, and most importantly, he would be required to maintain healthy relations with the neighboring countries. This is a highly political job, so our hero wonders if he is really cut out to be a king. Since he does not want to take any risks, he decides to ask Aura about what his job role is going to be over here. To his shock and surprise, Aura says that he will not need to do anything at all. Aura explains that the reason for this is because he will be the very first husband of the Queen of Capua. Her kingdom has always been dominated by men, so the fact that she is a ruling figure over here is an instance that probably will only happen once in a lifetime. Women are not really given much authority in this land, as their main job is to serve their men and look after the household. In the case of Aura, there has never been any kind of law regarding the roles of a husband to the queen. This means that Yama is not needed to perform any kind of duties at all, which sounds like a sweet deal. On top of that, Aura tells him not to worry about his role in this world, because her job will be to satisfy all his desires, no matter what shape or form that they may take. This sounds a bit too good to be true, because nobody would ever have such amazing luck come their way. No matter how Yama thinks about it, he feels that there has to be something else to the offer that's being presented to him. He tries to figure what Aura is going to get out of this deal, and the only thing that comes to mind is his royal blood. After all, she's basically telling him that he can live like a lazy goose, which is not what a normal woman would want in a man. Maybe Aura likes men who don't do anything with their lives, but would she really give our hero so much in his favor just to have him as her husband? This is when Yama awakens the businessman inside of him and states that he can't close a deal based off such little information. After all, he might just get the rug pulled out from under him, so he would like to ask the queen a few more questions. Yama reminds himself to think like a salaryman because in business, a man's look is determined by his will. He wants to strike the best kind of deal there is, and since Aura doesn't have a problem with his questions, he decides to give his interrogation skills a shot. First, he asks her how she would go about her marriage if he were to turn down her proposal. Aura replies by saying she would simply marry a noble man who has strong blood ties to her royal family. Yama realizes that there are other marriage candidates apart from him. But in that case, he needs to know how this noble man is connected to Aura's family. His questions seem to amuse the queen, so she takes a deep breath and says that there is no one in this kingdom who has blood ties to her royal family that can even rival Yama. The best possible case that she can expect will be her grandfather's mother's descendants, and nothing more than that. Yama believes that he has caught on to something here, so he tries to use his brain. A grandfather's mother would be 4 generations before Aura, so if the ancestry line fostered any further children, then there would not have been a need to summon Yama, who if from 5 generations ago. Aura had also stated that his ancestry line was a pleasant miscalculation, so this could mean that the strength of his blood ties to Aura's family don't really mean much. Yama now starts to wonder if there is value in the fact that he is from another world. There is so much going on in our hero's head that he starts to imagine everything being a big fat lie. Suddenly, Yama comes back to his senses and reminds himself not to get too carried away. Otherwise, his caution will not be of any use. After all, if a queen like Aura really had any shady motives, then she would not have revealed that she could send him back to his world, even if he said no. A villain would probably make up an excuse for not being able to undo their summoning. After considering all the angles, our hero is sure that Aura actually wants him to consider marrying her. Yama doesn't want to play any more games, so he asks Aura straight up that if he does marry her, then would he not need to do any kind of work in the kingdom? This is when he suspects that Aura actually wants a man who will not bother her with the ruling of her kingdom. The queen simply says that she can't expect our hero to do anything for her, if she has made him forsake his past life and his memories for this new position. This is enough information for Yama, so he decides to go over the points once again for clarity. First, there's the point that there are noble men waiting in line to marry Aura. But even then, she decided to summon a boy who was not supposed to have ties even as strong as these men. However, after Yama came to her world, she realized that he actually has the best connection to her family in this world. This explains the miscalculation, but even then, it looks like the only thing that Aura wants from Yama is children, since the very existence of a queen has never been heard of in this part of the world. Yama finds himself in a unique position to be the very first prince consort the kingdom has ever seen. Keeping these things in mind, our hero can very clearly see the goal that has been put right in front of him. He still has a few more questions left to clarify, so he continues by asking where exactly would he be staying in this country. Aura answers by saying it will most likely be the inner palace where both our hero and the queen will be living with each other, although at irregular intervals. Everything seems to be on track. So then Yama asks his final question to Aura. He wants to know that if he were to say yes to marrying Aura, then would it be fine for him to just stay confined within the inner palace? He would not speak or interact with anyone apart from Aura because he needs to fulfill his duties as a husband. Basically, our hero just wants to laze around and have fun each and every day. To his pleasant surprise, Aura gives him a smile and says that she would be more than happy to welcome that kind of attitude. This is all our hero needs to hear to realize that he has indeed hit the jackpot with Aura. The queen does not want him to do anything at all, apart from being a husband, and he fits the bill perfectly. If a noble man were to marry Aura, then he would also want to use the power that she holds as the queen. This would lead to power struggles and an ugly mess whenever they would get into an argument. In such a case, it would give rise to a dual power structure, and the kingdom would get split up into separate factions. Keeping this in mind, it would make sense to summon a person like Yama, since he is from another world, and hence has no connection to Aura's family from the outset. Now the queen tells our hero that while this may be a very big decision, and she doesn't want to rush him through it, Yama should try to take a call by the next night, because that's the only window she has to send him back to his own world. Our hero once again sits down to put his life into perspective, but he comes back with the same response. At the end of the day, he is a salary man, so this is the best kind of deal anyone can offer him. This is his one and only chance to actually enjoy his life, rather than doing so much work just to get by. He had to bow his head down to his bosses, even when he didn't want to. And even though he had become a full member of society in itself, there's only so much that basic status can do for you. However, at the same time, our hero believes that he does have pride in the fact that he was able to do all of this on his own, so he needs to consider something even greater. It is the fact that he will have to be kept by a woman, which is not a proud thing for a man. He can't just let go of such a thing easily. Seeing him in such deep thought does make Aura a bit conscious, and we can even see tears in her eyes. She says that even as she is thinking about it, she is asking too much from our hero. First of all, she summoned him here without his permission, and now she is asking him to rush through an important decision. It's almost as if she has become the very definition of what a tyrant is supposed to be. Now, she would not be surprised if Yama refused her proposal, and then she even asks him to forgive her for making him have this chat with her. She did not mean to come across as a shady woman and enforce her wishes upon Yama. This is all it takes for our hero to be smitten by her, and he gets up from his seat to hold the queen's hand. Now Yama openly tells Aura that they should get married, and this shocks her more than anyone else. Basically, he got the look from her that confirmed her true intentions, so now he does not have any issues with being taken care of by Aura. He tells the queen that he accepts her proposal, and this makes her blush. Now, we move on to meet the queen's right-hand man, known as Fadio, who greets Aura with respect. He then asks her that since she is now engaged to Yama, what would her impressions be as of now? She goes on to say that he is a lot sharper than she had expected him to be, and he might have already figured out what her true intentions are. Now, another man walks in and says that if Aura is skeptical of Yama, then she can just go ahead and accept the marriage proposal of one of her relatives. After all, it would not be surprising if Yama had his own motives as well. This man is the head of the court wizards, named Esperidion, also known as Esprit. Aura asks him that he may believe such a thing, but would he rather have her marry men like the Hungry Wolf or the puppet who are after her? The Hungry Wolf is known as Lord Pujaru, who is from the Jigen family. Esprit believes that he would make for a good husband because he is a great commander and one of the best warriors in the kingdom. On the other hand, there is also the puppet, who is named Lord Raphael of the Marquis family. His skills are good enough for him to become a highly valuable civil servant. Despite what the Lord of the Wizards may say, Aura simply replies by mocking both the lords. Pujaru is a man who just has too much ambition, while Raphael is nothing more than a puppy who will listen to whatever his family tells him. Fadio realizes that the queen is not going to move away from her decision, but he still mentions that Yama is not just from another class, but also from another world. From whatever he has seen so far, he is not so sure if Aura will be able to raise a family with our hero. The queen simply says that when it comes to such matters, it will depend on how persistent she will be with him. The men go along with what she says, but they also mention that it will be a huge problem if the royal family does not produce a child. The possibility is rare, but if it were to happen that Yama's elephant fails to rise for Aura's black hole, then this will have to be reported to the council instantly. Aura simply laughs this off because she feels that having children will be the least of their concerns. Fadio would like to know what she means by this, so she explains that Yama could not take his eyes off her twin peaks the entire time they were having their chat. Basically, our hero's intrusive thoughts got the better of him, and even though he tried his best to steal glances of Aura's curvy body, she was able to see through all of them. So, she is sure that her body will ensure that the two of them will end up having a child. Now, we move back to the real world where Yama has a month to wrap things up. The first thing he does is quit his job, which comes as quite a surprise to his boss. The reason he enlists is that he is taking over the family business, so his boss tries to sway him with his words. He states that Yama had just started becoming a major asset to the company, so he wouldn't have taken such a job if he had hated it. Of course, our hero knows that his boss wouldn't believe him if he said that he was leaving to get married to the queen of another world, so he simply says that he's had a change of heart. The boss accepts his resignation, but he also expects Yama to complete his notice period at the company. Until then, he will look for a new hire, so our hero bows down once again and agrees to the terms. Now that he's gotten this out of the way, Yama realizes that there isn't much time left for his summoning session. He needs to get ready before Aura calls for him again. So he decides to do the things that a husband would normally do for his wife. This includes going wedding shopping, and he even picks up a ring for the queen to make it feel like a proper marriage. The next thing he does is look for a power source, because he had quite a hard time back in her palace. It was so hot that he couldn't really sleep in peace, and he literally thought that it was 100 degrees, even though he didn't have a thermometer. Since he is now going to live in the kingdom for at least 30 years, he would love to have a fridge and an air conditioner as well. If he's going to be stuck in a room for the most of his time there, then he's also going to need entertainment in the form of games and movies. For that, he will need a generator, so he checks out what all he can buy from here. Yama comes across a whole bunch of options, but then he figures that he needs to come up with a power source. After all, diesel and gasoline would not be the right choice, as getting fuel in the kingdom would be a bit of an issue. Wind energy is not too reliable, and since our hero will need electricity at night, solar power would also not be an efficient method. There are generators that work on batteries too, but there's only a certain amount of batteries that a man can buy. After considering everything in front of him, Yama realizes that the best option for him is a hydro generator. As he prepares for his new life, a month goes by rather quickly, but a lot of it went into getting the legal papers signed for his hydro generator. He could have tried to force the people to sell it to him, but they would have probably just refused his order if he did not sign the river law's paperwork. With that hassle completed, Yama makes sure to have the moving company make a video on how to assemble the generator. This would make it easy for him to take it down and put it back up when he travels to Aura's world. As his luck would have it, he even has a place where he can practice setting up the generator. It's a mountain lodge that was set far away from the village where he was born. Most of the area was under the name of his grandparents when he had left for Tokyo, but Yama can enjoy the lodge and the area around it as they were both put under his name. It's actually the best possible place for him to try such things out, and he gets a hang of the generator soon enough. He's also got batteries just in case, and even in a worst-case scenario, the generator will last for 10 years. After all, there's only so much of a warrant you can expect from such an item, and most importantly, this is just a tool to help Yama get used to the world around him. It would be great if our hero got used to living in Capua before the generator breaks down, but he's also made such a big decision on a whim, so he'll just have to hope for the best. There's no turning back for now, so he has to arrange all his equipment together. He also gets a cart so that the process becomes easy for him, but it's still quite the task. Yama falls to the floor after moving everything, and even admits that he was going to meet his maker. He is an amateur after all, so moving all these items would have been a pain for him. Anyway, all the preparations are done now, so the only thing that's left is for the moving company to take all of Yama's other electronics to the warehouse. Now we learn that Yama was given a magic carpet by Aura when he was sent back to Japan. Basically, this is filled with time-space magic, so he will need to place all the items he wishes to get with him on top of the carpet for them to also travel with him. Now, Yama thinks about all the work he's done during this month to make sure he's ready for Aura and her world. He's even bought rings as a mark of respect to their marriage, so all that's left is for him to say goodbye to Earth. All he has ever done here is work, and with no family or dreams to motivate him, he is not going to have any regrets at all. Before he leaves, he decides to visit his relatives and is greeted by them with cheers and smiles. They are surprised to see him here because it's been a while since they last met, and now he's telling them that he's going abroad. The group discusses how tough it is for someone to settle overseas because it will be a completely different world from Japan, and there will be barriers such as language. Seeing them speak makes our hero remember his earlier days, as his relatives have not changed at all. We learn that when Yama was in middle school, he lost his parents to a car accident. He would eventually move to a high school dorm, but before that, he had stayed in this very house for a year and a half. Despite it only being such a short period of time, the family has still kept his seat at the table. Yama is told to enjoy the taste of home because he won't be coming back for a whole now. He enjoys his meal and thanks his relatives for their love and support. They even tell him that he can always reach out to them if he is facing any problems abroad. He happily accepts their gesture and thinks to himself that even though he had expected this to happen, he still feels a bit sad about leaving them. They did take good care of him, which was why he ended up meeting them one last time before he left this world. He takes a look at all the items in his room and sees an old cassette player, along with a study desk and a wardrobe. It's almost as if he had never left, because his room is still how it was when he used to stay here. Yama actually feels really bad, because even though his relatives have treated him like their own family, he has not given anything back to them. He tries to sleep now, but starts feeling cold, so he gets upset with himself. He talks to himself and tries to motivate his body because he's prepared for this exact reason. Suddenly, he hears knocking at the door, so he opens it to see his Oba-san standing in front of him. He asks her what she's doing over here at such a late time of night, so she asks him if there is something that he's hiding from her. It seemed as if he was hiding something from the family at the dinner table, so she wants to know if all is well. Our hero takes a moment, and then he tells her that he was probably just a bit nervous about going abroad and settling down over there. He says sorry if he made himself seem odd at the dinner table, But his Oba-san tells him not to worry about her or the others as they are all family. She goes on to give him a touching speech about how family will always worry about one another. But that should not weaken his resolve because he needs to live his best life. She says that she will always support Yama, no matter what, and this makes our hero emotional. He suddenly drops the wedding rings that he had got for himself and Aura. So he panics and rushes to take them before his Oba-san sees them. She asks if he's all right. But then Yama speaks in an excited voice, thanking her for all that she's done for him. He also mentions that he may not see her for a while, but he will do his best. She is a bit surprised to see Yama like this, so he says sorry for speaking in such a high volume. However, his Oba-san smiles and says that he had a look on his face that she had not seen in a while. He wants to know what kind of look this is, so she explains that it's the same kind of look that he had when her husband had asked to marry her. Our hero feels like she has seen right through him. But anyway, he gets ready for his journey and thanks his relatives for all their support. Now, he takes a small blade and pricks the top of his finger so that some blood can come out for the time-space magic to work. Aura had told him that since he has magic inside him, he will be able to activate the magic in the carpet given to him as well. This will allow Aura to summon him and all the other items he's bringing with him to the other world. Suddenly, the magic in the carpet gets activated, and then our hero gets a glimpse of his life on Earth. He sees how he had first found out that he was alone when his parents passed away, so he gives credit to his relatives for helping him get back on his feet. He then looks at the time he got accepted into college, which was a great moment for him because all his hard work had paid off at the time. Even if he looks back at his time working for the shady company, he admits that he learned quite a few things while he was there. There were good times and bad times, but either way, our hero thanks Earth for his life, and now he is ready to welcome another world. A burst of light takes over, and our hero is blinded for a moment. But then he can hear Aura telling him that she's glad to see he's here. Now she can truly say that Yama is in her kingdom inside her world. Yama looks up and sees his wife in waiting who welcomes him as her life partner. With that, our hero takes a deep breath and declares that he is back for good. Of course, the queen has to be careful, so she has her men inspect all of the items that Yama has brought with him. She also tells them that if they find anything shady, then they should bring it to her without any hesitation. One of the men ends up finding a lot of bottles, and he tells Aura that they are all alcohol containers. Some of these bottles had broken due to the movement caused during the summoning transfer, and the smell coming from them is most definitely that of alcohol. The queen takes a look at these bottles, and then tells her men to store all the ones with alcohol inside the wine cellar. Now she notices a glass shard inside one of the boxes, which has probably come from a broken bottle. Aura picks it up, and is amazed to see how humans have also been able to create crystals of their own due to the shiny nature of the glass shard. She wonders if vessels such as these are common in Yama's world, but the thing is that he has brought so many items from Earth that all of them seem to fascinate Aura. As the palace men take a look at all the different things that he has brought with him, it becomes clear to the queen that there is a marked difference between her and Yama. All these devices in his boxes state that he comes from a culture which the people of Capua have never even heard of. Suddenly, she sees one of her men doing something shady next to a box, so she stops him right in his tracks. She wants to know what he is hiding, so the other men also gather around to see what's up. The man says that he would never do anything shady in front of his queen, but she tells him to show what he had just put away because it looks like cloth. Judging from the man's movement, Aura wonders if he has just placed poison into her husband's luggage. With no other choice, the man reveals a rather spicy set of clothes that Yama may have brought in anticipation of getting with Aura on their first night together. Everyone notices that this is an outfit for women, especially because of how thin and transparent the cloth is. But they wonder why a boy like Yama has brought such clothes along with him. Now that the man is in the clear, Aura says sorry to him for her suspicions, but everyone thinks it's rather shady for Yama to have such an item in his luggage. However, Ora seems to be fine with our hero's intrusive thoughts because he is a man after all. Now we move to our hero, who is sitting by himself and also feeling a bit nervous. He shouldn't have brought anything dangerous with him, but the items from Earth may seem shady to the people from this world. Yama wonders if everything is going to be fine, and then he hears knocking on the door. He allows the person to come in, and her name is revealed to be Amanda, who is the head maid of this palace. As part of her job, she oversees all the slaves of the inner section, so she asks our hero if he has some time for her to introduce all the maids of the palace to him. Yama doesn't have any problem with this because it's not like he can leave his room right now either. Plus, he's not going to be a busy man as Ora's husband, so he can take his time with these maids. Now the maid girls walk in one after the other, and our hero is shocked to see the number of people simply in this section. They kick things off with Inez, who is in charge of cleaning, then Vanessa, who works in the kitchen, followed by Amelia, who tends to the gardens, and Araja, who tends to the baths. These 4 maid girls are the main ones who look after various areas of the inner palace. If Yama is ever to be in trouble and needs help, then he can feel free to call upon one of these girls. Our hero can only nod his head and say yes for now, but the head maid seems to share a glance with him that isn't normal. She soon recollects herself and bows down to Yama, but even he felt what just happened. He wonders if he is being too polite to these maid girls, because Capua definitely looks like something from an ancient era. After all, it may be that staff members are not treated with a lot of respect here in the palace. Our hero feels that it would be best if he thought of himself as a higher rank when compared to the others. However, it's going to be tough to get used to such a method, so he will probably need to grow into it. As of now, what he should do as the master is go about memorizing the names of all these maid girls. He is barely able to remember Amanda's name, and then the head maid says that there are a total of 9 maids, all of whom will be attending to him directly. This is definitely not what Yama had in mind when he came here, because it's like a luxury for him. Now we meet the other girls, starting with Karen, who says that Yama should feel free to ask her for whatever he wants. Then we meet Dolores, Fee, Leet, Crystal, Keisha, and Ima, all of whom are here to serve our hero. Amanda tells him that if he ever feels like asking for something minor, then he can talk to these 9 girls because he should not feel like he needs to ask Amanda first before going to the others. Yama is okay with this, he guesses, but he also has to remember all the names of these girls, which is going to be a pain. He decides to tell them that he is going to be in their care now, but then he realizes that he is being way too polite again, so he straightens his back and says that he expects great work from them all. This odd behavior actually works on the maid girls, so Yama realizes that it's really hard trying to live like a royal. Now he meets with Ora, who tells him that there are still some items of his that she would like to know the use for. Other than that, she will try her best to have all his items moved to the palace the next day. She does admit that she took the liberty of storing all his alcohol bottles into the cellar, but he doesn't have a problem with that. Of course, he's still feeling a bit uneasy, so Ora asks her husband if there is something that's bothering him. After all, she is here to make sure all his desires are met, so he can tell her whatever he feels. That's when Yama confesses that he's at a loss when it comes to the common sense of this world. He also has no idea on how he should be acting as royalty over here, so Ora asks him for some time to think about it. She will then figure out a way to help her husband adapt to this kingdom and its ways. It is a bit embarrassing for Yama, so he says sorry for the trouble he's causing, but Ora says it's totally understandable for him to be this way. She then says that she and her team had a look at everything he has brought with him, but they came across a lot of items and tools that looked like crystals made by hand. Of course, no one from this kingdom has come across anything like it before, so it has made them realize just how different their worlds are. Of course, Yama has no idea what crystals she's talking about, but then he figures that it might be the marbles that he's got with him. He explains to us that when he first came into this world, he didn't really see any glass around, so he thought that it would be nice to bring some of his own. However, He can now use his glass items for trading and other such activities. In any case, Aura would prefer if her husband rested for today and relaxed a bit because things are going to get a bit busy tomorrow. He wants to know what's up. So Aura reveals that the preparations for the wedding will begin as the dates have been set for 5 days from now. As expected, Yama is a bit taken aback by this call because 5 days is way too soon for any kind of wedding prep. The queen explains that since there is no precedent for this kind of royal wedding, the amount of time that it will take for the actual prep will not be a lot. After all, a wedding for a direct royal descendant such as Aura would take around a year to prepare. For such families, weddings are not just a simple celebration, but rather an extremely important place for diplomacy as well. Over the period of 1 year, messages would be sent to each and every possible nobleman and member of royalty, not just from a local angle, but also from a foreign one. Also, since weddings are supposed to showcase how well off a kingdom is, it becomes important to make it as grand as possible. Yama makes sense of the situation, but then he asks Aura if she is having a wedding so soon due to the fact that she is a queen and not a king. She smiles at her future husband and states that he does have an astute sense of deduction. There is no such precedent for a queen to have a wedding in the kingdom, and if anyone had an issue with it, then they would have stopped it from going ahead. Yama adds to this by saying her wedding would end up complicating the structure of power in the kingdom too. Aura gives him an example by saying if she were to sit on the throne as the sole ruler of the kingdom and Yama went ahead to father a child with another woman, then it would make things very complicated. There would be some individuals who would end up plotting against her so that they can make the child become the next king of the land. Of course, Yama says that he would never do something like this, but the queen only wants to make sure that no one messes around with her wedding. She goes on to say that there is not much to worry about, because her political prowess is such that it will not fail against any kind of political scheme. Even so, the best she can do is take the wind out of the sails of those who are plotting against her. She fully intends to place as less of a burden as possible on our hero, but there will be times when she will need him to help out with some stuff. He does not know what she means by this, so it does make him a bit nervous, but he is up to the task. So he tells her that he will make himself useful whenever it's possible. Aura tells him once again that the ceremony is going to be small, so she hopes he doesn't have an issue with that. We quickly move forward to the wedding now, where we see lots of people in attendance. The announcer declares that everyone present here will now witness the ceremony between Queen Aura and Yama, who will now be referred to as His Majesty. Our hero, on the other hand, is shocked to see the number of people in attendance, because this is by no means a small ceremony. After all, even Hollywood weddings aren't as flamboyant as this one. Our hero looks quite nice having been dressed properly, and even Aura is looking lovely in her white dress. She says it's time to go, but our hero wonders who will take the first step, as there will be lots of judgment to be passed. If Aura makes the first move, then she will be seen as a woman who thinks of herself to be above men. However, if Yama does it, then he will be seen as a shady man who is manipulating the queen. Keeping this in mind, the best way would be to step forward at the same time, and then the couple makes their entry. Some men talk about how the groom is supposed to have a lot of mana, which is probably why Aura will want to have his baby inherit the powers of the royal family. The rumors already begin to spread amongst the people in attendance, but it's mostly got to do with the fact that they want to get close to Yama. This becomes too much for our hero to take, and the anxiety is becoming a bit too much for him to handle. He tries to calm himself down, but it is of no use, and he loses his sense of balance. It even looks like he is going to fall down, but just as this is about to happen, his arm is held by Aura, who saves him from a rather humiliating moment. He figures that the queen is used to this kind of chatter, so he should also do his best to make this work out. He reminds himself that this is the moment he has been waiting for, because he is going to live a new life moving forward. He decides to walk forward, and even though it may feel like he is a baby who is just learning to walk, our hero knows that his life is going to change forever with this marriage. The both of them walk up to the head of the wizards, and they bow down to him to gain his blessings. With that, the wedding is done with, and everyone cheers for Yama and Aura together. Our hero takes a look at all the common folk in front of him, and he feels a bit overwhelmed by it all. Later at night, he can breathe a sigh of relief as he tells Aura that they managed to make it through all the drama. Now the queen switches to flirt mode and tells Yama that he must be tired from this day, just as she is. He wants to get something for her to drink because it's getting hot in here, and he is already feeling nervous. Our hero goes to the fridge that he's got to this world and takes out a bottle of wine that's chilled. However, he also knows that tonight is his first night with Aura as her husband, so there are some expectations. Intrusive thoughts aren't hard to come by for Yama, but the last time he was with a girl was back in college, so he's a bit rusty to say the least. It doesn't even matter that he and Aura are tired, because it is their duty to do shady things with each other. He gives the queen some wine, but he wonders how he is going to get her in the mood. After all, he has never been with anyone from royalty, so this might get a bit interesting. The funny thing is that he doesn't even need to make any effort, because Aura asks him to come sit next to her instead of on the other side of the couch. This is clearly an invitation to do unspeakable things with each other. But is our hero going to accept? Is he finally going to conquer the queen of his new world? Like, share, and subscribe if you liked this video. Hit the bell icon to get notified when I upload part 2. See you soon.